Join us on the last episode.
Okay, so today I'm bringing you the Adlet. So basically, this is a Canadian, Greenlandic, Icelandic folklore, Inuit folklore. So there's no real encounters. Well, I do have an encounter actually, but you know, it might be one of these internet ones where, you know, people in Holland say they're seeing skinwalkers. You know, people just want their moment. But yeah, but this is folklore. So it's more of a story. So it is mostly going to be me reading, bringing the Adler into your life, essentially.
You say this is kind of one of your top cryptids. We put him in top 5.
No, not well. The story's fun, but as far as the image, it's one of my top 5. Yeah, for how it looks.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good image. It's a classic image, but otherwise, the story's just always been. I don't know. I heard it years ago, and I just like it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it to you.
Nice. Yeah,
So
I've not heard of this one.
You what?
I've not heard of this one, so I'm coming in fresh.
Okay. So, yeah, the Adlet, they're a tribe of canine humanoid hybrids with like the legs and head of a canine and the body of a man. So, essentially, it's the classic like Hammer horror werewolf look.
Yeah.
You know, the bipedal werewolf, as opposed to the other movie werewolf where it's a man turns into a wolf. This is more of a Dogman look.
Yeah.
But they've got, rather than having black or grey fur, these tend to be light brown or white.
Right. So we're going dog soldier stance.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Upright. Right. Got it.
But walking more fluidly rather than people clearly on stilts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, they're said to have like quite long snouts, big teeth, orange, yellow eyes, claws, and apparently run very quickly. But despite the formidable description of like a clearly frightening beast, any quote marks encounters with people usually result in the Adlet losing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that comes down to our use of fire and weapons.
Right.
So I think if you let the Adler get close enough, you lose.
Yep.
But if you can keep them at a distance with your guns and your harpoons and your bow and arrow and your fire, I suppose, is your last resort. But
so it's not like a holy water silver situation. It's just unload your guns on him and he's done for.
You can certainly slow him down, but I mean, silver definitely works.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have the regenerative power of the Wolfman. Okay. So the origin of the Adlet, according to an ethnologist named Franz Boas, apologies to the Boas family if I'm saying that wrong, but I shouldn't be using his name too much more in this.
That's good.
But yeah, according to his version seems to be the most comprehensive that I've found. So we're going to go with him, and he's an ethnologist. So
yeah, professional.
He's a professional storyteller, I suppose. So there was a girl, an Inuit girl named Niviasiang. From here on, known as Nivi. And she lives with her dad, Saviarkong. From here, known as Savi. But she wouldn't marry any of the local warriors or hunters or whatever. And no matter what marriage proposals came her way or arrangements or whatever, she just flat out refused them. Eventually earning herself the moniker of Unigumis Sweetung, which means she who wouldn't take a husband.
Damn.
But we're going to continue to call her Nivi.
Yeah.
So after rejecting all her suitors, she marries a dog for some reason called Ijirkang. He's a white dog with browny red spots. And she married him as opposed to a fella. So there's no real explanation given. I think she did it just to annoy people. And anyway, she married this Ijirkang and had 10 kids.
Whoa.
10.
No way.
Kids.
They were busy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But 5 came out as like dogs, like
Right.
looking just like the dad. And 5 came out Adlet.
Whoa.
So half and half. Now, they had dog bodies as their lower half, is what it says here. Now, I have said that they are the classic Wolfman look, but there are versions of this where the Adlet, which is also the name of a tribe of Inuit, who just have the dog lower half and they're like all man up half, but they're quite savage. So I don't know if they were just a particularly brutal group who were bestowed with animal-like powers, or at least said to by their enemies. I don't know. But I prefer the dog-headed ones because it's a great look.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just love the thought of a wolf man over a man turning into a wolf because there's no scarier than a wolf with thumbs.
Yeah, and also standing on 2 legs. Way freakier.
Exactly. I don't think sitting down is going to be comfortable with their tail, but I don't think that's not an issue that's going to come up in this.
No, man.
So yeah, they had a man for their upper half, apparently. Now, this Ijirkang, the dog that he is, the bad dog, wouldn't hunt. He
Lazy.
just wouldn't look it wouldn't look after his kids. He'd just lay on the couch and watch Jeremy Kyle. And the children were getting hungry, they were getting loud, and they had to live with Nivi's dad. And he had to provide for everybody. He had to go hunting all the time, and he had to come home to a loud, useless household and that. And he didn't like it. Savvy wasn't pleased. So he sent him away. He stuck him in his boat. Ijirkang, Nivi, and the kids. He put them all in his boat, and he rowed them off to this little island. It doesn't say where the island was, but I know some of this original legend was based around Hudson Bay, so it might have been out there, that area. But to be honest, all north end of Canada and Alaska and up to Greenland and what have you is many, 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 many islands. So
Right. Could have been any.
it could be any of them. So anyway, he leaves them there. And he had enough. So he did that. And then he tells Ijirkang to every day swim back to find Savvy, and Savvy will give him meat for the family, and then he goes back. So at least, although Savvy's still going to be providing, he's going to get his peace and quiet at home.
Yeah, it's kind of like paying alimony.
Probably getting his couch back.
Yeah.
So, anyway, one day, Nivi, what she would do each day is put some boots around Ejirkang's neck so he could get him filled up with meat so he can still swim. So I'm guessing he dog paddles. And so he would have the boots like around his neck. So he goes over to get the meat one day, and Savvy, the sly dog or non-dog, doesn't fill the boots with meat, fills them with rocks.
Oh, you dirty dog.
Yeah, and Ejirkang clearly didn't check these boots because he set off swimming back and he drowned.
Damn.
Just flat out drowned. And Nivi was pretty unhappy. So she goes out, gets on her dad's boat while he's fishing, takes kids with her, and she sets the children on him. You know, to like not eat him, essentially. And yeah, she sends him to like gnaw off his hands and feet.
Whoa.
Specifically. And while this struggle's happening, Savvy kicks Nivi overboard. And but she manages to catch hold of the side of the boat. I believe it's referred to as the gun whale. And she's like hanging on for dear life on the side of the boat. But Severe swings his ulu knife and he cuts Nivi's fingers off. And they all fall into the sea and become the whales and the seals. Yeah. And anyway, Nivi survived, but was afraid that her dad was going to kill her kids. Obviously, because they were trying to eat his hands and feet off. So what she does, she sends the Adlet inland to stay away from humans, stay safe. And apparently they go off and form other Inuit tribes. They're like the origin of the Inuit.
Right.
And what she does, she makes a little makeshift raft boat thing for the puppies and sends them out on the ocean. They eventually reach Europe and spawn the Norse, the Northern Europeans, who will later come back. They'll come home to her.
That's where they
So it's basically a little explanation of where Inuit come from and later the Norse settlers as well.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how Europeans were created. Now, that is the origin of the Adlet. It's just a nice little. It's not a nice story at all, to be fair. But
I like it. Graphic.
It's just a little tale. But I mean, I hope to cover a lot of British ones because some really good ones here as well, and in Ireland and Scotland. However, I have found one, air quotes again, reliable encounter online, an anonymous poster on just on pinebarreninstitute.com.
Ooh.
Okay. And I'm just going to read this verbatim. So any poor grammar or English or whatever is not down to me.
That's on the Pine Barrens, bro.
Yeah, I think essentially the Pine Barren Institute, it's a general cryptid paranormal site, but I think it was originally, well, I just think it originated around the Pine Barren
Right.
Jersey Devil. But it's that site where this came about. So the anonymous poster claims that the Adlets, they had an Adlet sighting in the Niagara region of Ontario, Canada, in January 2020.
Whoa.
So recent, I know. And it says, a month ago, I was in the car driving back from Niagara Falls. It was a snowy night, very dark outside and cold. My friend and I were driving down a dark street with hardly any streetlights. As we were driving, I noticed the glare of eyes beside the road and looked to right as we were passing a driveway. Next to the driveway was a mailbox and then a ditch. Standing halfway in the ditch was this very tall, large, white and hairy creature. It was standing on all fours with longer front ones than back limbs. I am usually very good with recognizing species and breeds of animals, but I am 100% certain this was not any creature I've ever seen before. I asked my friend if they saw it, and she said no. We both looked back to see the white hairy creature disappearing into a dark wooded area. We were both very freaked out and talked about it the rest of the way home. I brought it up to one family member, and neither of us ever talked about it again. Yesterday, we had a lot of bitter snow here in Thorold, Ontario. Last night at approximately 11:30 p.m., my brother, who is a year older than me, came in the house in a kind of panic and scared. He was walking home from his friend's house, which is about a block away, and as he was approaching our street, he heard a growl and briefly saw, as what he described to me, the same white, hairy creature standing on the opposite side of the street before it disappeared. After a lot of Googling different words, trying to see if anyone else had seen the same type of thing, we came across the Adlet. That's the account.
I like it.
Now, I don't know what to take from it. I had to add a bit of drama there with my voice, if that's what you could call it.
This is one of the only accounts. Did you say there's just not many?
That's literally all I could find. And it just sounds to me like someone wanted in on it.
You know what? Yeah.
But then again, there was no real canine description. There was the all fours thing with longer front arms, which kind of brings to mind more of apes are a bit like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I like it. It's a cool origin story, and I like the brutality of it as well.
Right. Well, I was reliably informed by my firstborn that while I was researching the Adlet and looking into it, he chirped in saying that sounds very much like a story he had heard in some other podcast, I think, that you were listening to, or maybe a book or a YouTube video or something. And he sent me it. So what I've done, just to flesh this out a bit, I've got another Greenland myth called Sedna. Okay.
Sedna.
Now this one is lifted pretty much straight from the guidetogreenland.com. Now, the reason I've added this is the story, the origin story is so similar to the Adlet that, well, I'm going to give you various little Sedna. There's a lot of different versions of the Sedna tale, so
Right.
I'll read them, but they kind of go the same way. So I'm wondering if there's just a common. I don't know enough about Inuit folklore, but I don't know if there's some kind of common ground here. So, without much more gobbing about, I will tell it. So, an old Greenlandic myth tells a story of a young woman, Sedna. She was so incredibly beautiful with her big black hair and so clever and skillful. She was the perfect Inuit woman, but no man was good enough for her. Every time a handsome hunter asked for her hand, she'd send him away. Sedna herself was a very good hunter, and she needed no man to take care of her. Okay, she was a boss bitch.
This is sounding similar.
So, yeah. But her attitude made her father very angry, and he wanted her to behave just like the other women in the village, and for her to get married as soon as possible. His patience ran out, and one day he demanded she sail to an abandoned island. She would live there until she was wise enough to accept one of the proposals of marriage. Sedna waited and waited on the island, and as time went by, she suddenly got a visitor, a very handsome man, who told her that he was a successful hunter. And he promised a life with him where she would never miss anything. So, after some consideration, she finally accepted his proposal, and together they left the island. One day, Sedna's father got the horrible message that his daughter had been tricked. The man she had married was an imposter. He didn't catch any food, he treated her horribly, and she suffered and starved every single day. In pure rage, the father and the entire family sailed off to save the poor Sedna and to get her home safely. The family arrived at Sedna's home and she quickly got in the boat, beaten and anxious and afraid of what her husband would do when he found out she was gone, and with good reason. For as soon as the husband discovered she had escaped, he revealed his true self as a shapeshifter and shapeshifted into the form of a huge eagle. Caca. Like that, he flew out into the ocean. And when he saw the boat and the family, he started to flap his wings so hard that it created a massive storm and sent the boat out of control. He waved and waved his wings until the boat started to sink. Sedna fell overboard in the storm, and in her attempt to survive, she grabbed onto the railing with both her hands. But the big eagle was furious and determined to see her dead. So he kept on creating bigger and even more deadly storm waves. Sedna screamed and begged of her father to help her up from the freezing water. But as the father saw the rising rage of the eagle, he decided that it'd be to save the rest of the family. So he took his ulu knife and in one desperate slay, he cut off all his daughter's fingers. So he sacrificed her for the greater good, I suppose. And as the screaming Sedna sank into the darkness of the deep, the eagle finally stopped his raging and let the family go. Sedna kept sinking, and her fingers were pulsating with pain, and her heavy clothes quickly dragged her towards the bottom of the ocean. But all of a sudden, the pain stopped, and the blood stopped running from her fingers, and it all turned into silver-coloured creatures. They were the first fish. Sedna now realised that she could breathe again, and she suddenly remembered the words of the village shaman who once told her about the spirits of nature. They live in the northern lights. From here, they can control the changes of the seasons and all life. If somebody is being wronged, and the spirits will help, but only if they are still truly pure of heart. Sedna now lived in the ocean, but as time went by, her big black hair got all messed up and dirty, and because she had no fingers, it was impossible for her to comb it. And in her angry and sad attitude, she was a ruin, and the Inuit would come to fear her.
Man. I like it. Women scorned. That's what I'm getting from these.
But there's more. There is more. So back on land, the Inuit was starving and Sedna's family were dead. There were no animals to catch and the supplies were long gone. In crises like this, the village would summon the shaman, Angakok. Now, that's his name, and I will spell it for you just so you may find your own way of saying it. It's Angakkoq.
Yeah,
Now, in my Anglo voice, that comes out as Angakok.
It's just a badass name.
That's what I'm sticking with, yeah.
Yeah, is what it is.
Anyway, Angakok would then get into a state of trance and be able to communicate with the spirits of nature, helping him to restore balance. So, the shaman and the spirits travelled to the bottom of the ocean where they found a huge house with a big sledge dog on the roof. The dog growled at them but let them pass. And inside the house, they found a giant, furious woman. Now, the spirits whispered to the shaman that he had to tangle himself into the hair of the woman and hold on tight as she was going to try and kill him. After a while, the wrestling with the woman, the shaman successfully convinced her that he was there to help and not harm. She believed him, and he found a comb and started to fix her messy hair. He removed all sorts of trash that the people had tossed in the water, and as the hours passed by, her hair was almost clean again. As he combed the last straws of hair, 10 giant animals started to swim out of her hair. One animal for each of her chopped off fingers. A bearded seal, a walrus, a hooded seal, a narwhal, a reindeer, a polar bear, a ringed seal, a musk oxen, harp seal, and all kinds of birds. So, Sedna, now the mother of the sea, talked to Angakok and told him that the Inuit wasn't trying hard enough to live their lives properly, that they were greedy, and that their indifference made her hair all tangled. So all the animals got stuck and were held back from the hunters. If the shaman could remind his people about their place in this world and that they had to learn how to live in complete balance with nature, then she would once again release the animals. Angakok returned to his people, and since that day, the Inuit have tried to keep their promise to the Mother of the Sea, and when they fail, she still punishes them and lets the animals stay in her hair at the bottom of the ocean, leaving the Inuit to starve. So that was the Sedna story, where there are similarities to the Adlet story.
Yeah, definitely.
And there are a few more little versionettes, which have just lifted from, they have come from Wikipedia, but they're all really short, but similar. So
I can't imagine there's an awful lot of stuff about this because these aren't really like sort of creature stories that I've heard before. I know it's not your standard kind of cryptid story. These are more like, actual origin stories of how tribes thought certain things came to be. But I like how it probably feeds onto potential cryptids. I mean, you can't beat a Dogman. It's kind of up there in the top 3 of all time cryptids. So, it could be traced back to these guys.
They're going to relate them to animals that they know. So, they're not going to suddenly out of nowhere come up with a chupacabra or anything,
Exactly.
So, anyway, some of the Wikipedia stories with like other Sedna legends. So, in one legend, Sedna is a giant and the daughter of the creator god Anguta. And with a great hunger, she's caused to attack her parents. Angered, Anguta takes her out to sea and throws her over the side of his kayak. And as she clings to the sides, he chops off her fingers and she sinks to the underworld, becoming the ruler of the monsters of the deep. Her huge fingers become the ringed seals, walruses, and whales hunted by Inuit. These are all very brief Sedna stories.
Okay.
So, in another version of the legend, she's dissatisfied with men found by her father, and so marries a dog. Her father is so angry at this that he throws her into the sea, and when she tries to climb back onto the boat, he cuts off her fingers. Her fingers become the first seals, and she becomes a mighty sea goddess. When she is angered, the Angakok. I see, we've got a variation there of Angakok.
Okay.
Shaman travels to wash and comb her hair for her, after which she's placated and releases the animals to the hunters. In other versions, she is unable to comb her hair because she lacks fingers, so a shaman must brush it for her. In the Netsilik region, I don't know if I've pronounced that in any decent way, The story states that Nuliayuk was a mistreated orphan, and one day the people tried to get rid of her by attempting to drown her by chopping off her fingertips, which transformed into seals and walruses. Eventually, Nuliayuk marries a sculpin and lives in the sea, controlling all the sea mammals. Other versions of legend depict Sedna as a beautiful maiden who rejects marriage proposals from hunters of a village, and when an unknown hunter appears, Sedna's father agrees to give her to him as his wife in return for fish. Sedna's father gives Sedna a sleeping potion and gives her to the hunter, who takes her to a large nest on a cliff, revealing his true form, a great bird spirit. She wakes surrounded by birds. Been there. And her father attempts to rescue her, but the bird spirit becomes angry, causing a great storm. In desperation, Sedna's father throws her into the raging sea, attempting to cling to the kayak. Her hands freeze and her fingers fall off, becoming the creatures of the sea. And she falls to the bottom of the sea and grows a fish tail. Sedna is kidnapped or deceived by a different bird creature in yet another version. Her father then leaves in his kayak to rescue her from the floating ice island, where she is imprisoned while the bird creature is away. The creature, enraged by her disappearance, calls to the spirit of the sea to help him. The sea spirit locates the kayak with the two humans aboard and creates huge waves to kill them. Her father throws Sedna overboard in the hope that it will appease the angry god. Sedna clings to the kayak, but her father grabs a little axe and chops 3 of her fingers off before striking her on the head. The 3 fingers become a different species of seal. The stroke to her head sends Sedna to the ocean floor where she resides, commanding the animals of the sea. In an additional version of the story, Sedna marries a man who claims to be a fantastic hunter. He then takes her away to a distant island, and once there, he reveals himself to be a birdman. Being a birdman, he was not a good hunter and could only hunt fish. Unable to escape the island, she resigned herself to her situation until her father came to visit one day. Her father decided to kill the birdman upon realizing he lied about who he was, in an attempt to rescue his daughter. They left the island on her father's kayak, and when the birdman's friends attacked them in retaliation, they flew above the kayak and created great waves to attack the kayak with. Sedna's father was so frightened he threw her overboard. She then grabbed onto the edge of the kayak, holding on for her life. Fearing she would tip over the boat, her father cut off her fingers, making her fall into the water. The fingers that were cut off then became sea animals, and she sank to the ocean floor where she became a spirit of the ocean. In one Baffin Island tradition, Sedna was in a kayak with her family when a storm started. Her parents thought she was to blame for the storm and threw her in the sea. She clung to the kayak, but her father cut her fingers off. First the tips, then the second knuckle, then the last knuckle. So he tortured her off that boat.
Jeez.
Her disembodied fingers turned into sea creatures, and Sedna gained control over the animals. And if humans angered her, she could stop the animals from coming to their hunting sites, thus causing famine. That is the end of my Sedna stories, and with it, the end of my Greenland folklore session.
I enjoyed it. I really like it. I've got a few things that I don't know if you're going to be able to explain, but you might be able to. I
can pontificate.
Exactly. You give your version on it. I liked it. I like overall it's your kind of, standard folk tale to explain natural occurrences and, where did the sea creatures come from? What's the deal with all these storms? Oh, it's all fucking Sedna flapping her wings again. She's been pissed off by some hunter. I like it.
I think it's respect nature more than anything.
And definitely, with all those stories there, it's the hunter, the masculine element, taking it. Obviously, it's negative. It comes into, the Sedna's life and kind of tries to fuck her up. And it's kind of like, Mother Nature getting her own back, but not getting her fingers chopped off.
I think essentially Sedna is Mother Nature.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. 100%. No males in these stories really give a good light other than the... Well, no.
Well, dads certainly don't.
I was going to say dad, yeah. But as far as the women that entered her life, looking for a bit of love, I don't think you're going to find it. So she just...
I feel the
sea animals.
Story came before the Adlet.
You think the
I just think the end result of the Adlet was better.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're always going to sway towards the Dogman. You know what I mean? It's
every time.
It's natural. But yeah, I mean, both stories, they couldn't be separate. One had to come from the other. I am going to go with the Dogman story just because it's badass. And when you was telling it, I was thinking of dog soldiers, and I was thinking he's badass.
But I think the Adlet story had more substance. It was more of a tale than the Sedna one. The Sedna one just seemed to be a list of bullet points.
No, but I saw Sedna as a bit more of like... I've really got kind of an image in my head, and it's a really shit image. And our listeners are going to hate me for it if they even get the reference. But the Silent Hill film?
Mm-hmm.
And Hare, the main, protagonist sort of ghost thing at the end, where she's just kind of like this all-encompassing demon. Same in the film Paranorman, if anyone's seen that. I imagine just this female kind of image of rage. And she's just controlling nature. She's controlling the storms. And she's fucking up these hunter dudes who are trying to get in the knickers because I ain't cool. You don't mess around with Mother Nature like that. And yeah, I kind of get a bit more of a badass story where the Adlet, again, all about the dogmen and her army of dogmen. And I like the fact she got busy with a dog and they produced a bunch of other dogs who then went on to maybe fuck shit up.
Wow. Wow.
Not that I'm Put Scott, right? Listen, hear me out, brother.
You do you. I've never been to Tijuana myself.
Right. I just want to say right now that I do not promote bestiality, but in the realms of folklore, it's all game, brother. It's all game.
Oh. So in Lee's world, what we're saying is, any hole's a goal.
No, in Lee's world, what I'm saying is, if you produce a Dogman, that's badass. I'm not going to ask you how you did it. Just produce Dogmen. How about that?
Okay. So the end doesn't always justify the means.
Exactly, brother. Exactly.
Okay. That's today's lesson on today's bus home.
Hell yes, brother. Hell yes.